All right, guys, here we are on the Josh Crane podcast. Super excited again today to have a guest with me. This guy's born and raised right here in Tennessee. Went to Christian schools his entire life, which is kind of an interesting thing we're going to talk about. He's in the finance industry, currently serving as a treasury analyst, been in that business for about 20 years. Super good guy. I've known him for a few years now. Very glad to have him on the show, Glenn Shaw.
What's up, Josh?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man.
Good. I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I was the
pinch
hitter.
Yeah, pinch hitter, dude. Hey, sometimes you got to have those,
Love
you
it.
know?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're here, dude. I've been wanting to talk to you. You know, you and I, maybe back when they had the singing over at Sportscom or something, I think we touched base a little bit, and this was still kind of in its infancy, in its design, you know?
Yep.
And we had talked a little bit. So let's talk, man. So let's tell the audience a little bit. Glenn Shaw. Who is Glenn Shaw?
Yeah, like you said, born and raised in Tennessee, specifically in Antioch. Went to Ezel Harding Christian School my entire life. So kind of compare that to MTCS. Oh, there's a funny story. I didn't even know MTCS existed until I started going over to Kingwood. But anyway, so graduated from there in 2001. Took a couple years off. Even in my 40s, I debate if that was a good idea, but I think from a maturity standpoint, it was. Ended up going to MTSU, graduating, majoring in mass communications, for more so in TV radio broadcasting.
No kidding.
Yeah, man.
So let's talk about that for a minute. What was it that you were? I mean, was there something specific you were wanting to do with that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we're talking off camera or off mic, you know, sports was a big thing, so really wanted to get into the sports broadcasting world. So I actually interned at WSMV under Rudy Kalis.
No kidding.
For many of those who probably know Rudy as a sports guy.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Great guy, man. Fantastic guy. I realized the second day I was there, this is not for me.
Why?
The news thing was not for me. Just how, man, it's just a very small microcosm of what sports really is. I mean, you're on TV for maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe not even that long. The pressure that they have, I probably should have gone back and done it at 104.5 The Zone or something like that.
Okay.
Intern there. Because, I mean, I wanted to be on the radio is really, really where I wanted to be. Focus on that. So,
but you're still a sports guy.
Big time sports guy.
So maybe you need the Glenn Shaw podcast.
Maybe
dude.
so. Well, you know what's funny?
Do the sports thing.
Man, I did that years ago. I had a college football. I called it College Football Rundown. Me and a guy that I went to school with did that. We had really success with it. We had a falling out. And then life got busy, man. You start having kids, and because I only have one, so you know more than I do.
Yeah.
So one was stressful
one
for
broke
me.
you.
So yeah, I was like, Erica, no more. So you know, I've thought about getting back in it, but it's just finding the right time and the right way to do it. And now that Ryan's playing sports, which is my son, it's hard for me to do it. But who knows? One day.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So you graduate college.
Yep.
Figure out that
wasn't it. And I was already in banking while I was in school, so I didn't, you know, I was at home, so I commuted. My parents allowed me to live there, which was a blessing. And then stayed in banking.
Okay.
So, you know, $25,000 worth of student loan debt for nothing.
Yeah. Well.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the American dream.
That's it, man. That's what they say. Somebody's dream.
Right.
But so stayed in banking. My wife Erica, we met in 07, got married in 08, had Ryan in 09.
All right.
Yeah. So God was, you know, all that was a God thing, though. I don't think you never had this conversation, but you know, having Ryan at a young age was a trying time for Erica and I because we just got married. But her mom passed away in 2011. Mine passed away in 2012. So they got to spend time with Ryan. Okay. Whereas if we would have waited, you know what I'm saying? Like God works in those mysterious ways. So it was a God thing.
Yeah, definitely mysterious, man.
Yeah, man.
The longer I live, the more mysterious I realize it actually is.
It really, no doubt. Absolutely.
So you and I met, just so kind of the audience understands, we met through church. Mm-hmm. At that time, we were both attending Kingwood. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how we met. Yep. But, you know, it's interesting. I think, you know, you and I have had some conversations, you know, prior to today. you are similar to me in the sense that you grew up, both your mom and dad were members of the church, and church was just kind of, it was always present, right? Maybe not central, but it was always present. And that's kind of how I was. I mean, I grew up, my earliest memories are of my dad when my dad was still preaching. And, there's these stories that people have told me over years that when I was a little kid, and it was the thing, you go up to Josh and be like, hey, Josh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And according to everybody, including my mom, Josh always said, I want to be a bald-headed preacher just like my daddy. So didn't quite make that, but nonetheless. But, church was kind of always present, but then there were these stages in life, mine and my parents, where church was not really present. Like I don't know how to explain that really. If you understand what I mean, it's like once you're part of the church, it's always there, right? It's not like I don't know about it. It's not like I don't have some inside pull to do the right thing. It's just like you let other things kind of take over. But
yeah, and that's easy to do, Josh, right? I mean, when I was in college, I wasn't going to church all the time. In fact, probably from the time I was in school to the time my mom passed away, I was in and out.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I got married, right? It was the foundation that was built. And I'll even go a step further. I mean, that Jesus and God, all I learned was at church. Love my parents to death. We did not do devotionals at home.
Yeah.
Didn't have all those conversations. I don't know if that was different for you, but that's what my experience was. As I got back into the church, I was blessed enough to be able to have a conversation with my mom before she couldn't no longer talk, which was a blessing from God. And her thing that she told me, I'll never forget this, find a church so that Ryan will grow up in the church and know Jesus. And I was like, man, what?
Yeah.
And that was a real conversation. That's what catapulted me to go, you know what? Maybe church is important.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting, man, because I think when Ashley and I started having kids, Ashley and I attended church together before, and we were married. She would know this better than I do. We were married 5 years before we had our first child. And a lot of that 5 years I was in school, in various places, but church was sporadic at best for us. But once we had kids, it's like something about it just brings you back into focus, and you go, even if I'm not doing it for me the way that I should, I've got to make sure this little one is set on the right path early on. So I totally get that.
Yeah. And I'll go even. Even when Ryan was smaller, my dad took it upon himself to take him to church with him when he knew I wasn't doing it. That was a really big time.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about church then, man.
Yeah.
Because that's it'll be interesting to. I think you and I have probably had some similar experiences, and then we probably have obviously things that we view a little differently. But, I think in a nutshell, I'm in a place right now where I guess if I had to describe my spiritual walk, I would describe it as right now I am in that stage where I recently fell down, started running the wrong direction on the route, got bitter and angry, and then clawed my way back to the right path. And now I'm on that path, but I'm not up to speed yet. And I think in my mind, when I say that, I'm visualizing like a guy running, because, Paul talks about it being a running a race, and I feel like, man, I don't know what that sport is, and I haven't watched the Olympics. We can talk about that too, but there's this sport where dudes run, and then periodically they have to jump a hurdle, and then periodically they have to jump, but they land in water, and then they go. It's I don't know what that's called, but so it's kind of like that. It's like years ago, Ashley and I did the Warrior Dash, which is like an obstacle race.
Oh yeah,
right?
I heard about that.
So I view my spiritual walk right now as I've moved out of that phase where I'm running and I've got my wind and I'm feeling pretty good to I've hit some obstacles. They've knocked the wind out of me and I'm back on the right track, but I'm not up to speed yet and I don't have my wind yet. You know, that's where I'm at. And I don't know, man, I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but I'm just going to say, because it's real, it's how I feel, you know, and people can agree with it or they can go, hey man, Josh is off base. That's cool too. But I understand that I own a lot of that, but I firmly believe that part of the way I fell off track was aided by the people that were around me within the church.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that definitely can happen. You know, you and I were talking before we started recording. We were at, I won't mention the church, but the church we were at prior to Kingwood is where we really found as a family, for the first time, found our footing. Okay. Baptized Ryan there. We were very involved, made a lot of good friends. My dad was still at our old church. And I just was like, man, you know, why don't you come worship with us? He lived off of exit 80, trying to think what the Joby Jackson.
Yeah.
And he was still going to Smith Springs, which was in Nashville. Man, he was driving an hour. I was like, Dad, come worship with us. He ended up come visiting with us, which was awesome. Ended up meeting a lady there, and they ended up getting married, and she took him away from us. She basically gave him an ultimatum: you either choose me or your kids. And we were very close, and Ryan was close with him, and that was devastating. And we went through that, and her family went there, and I had really strong conversations with my father about it, and I was like, hey, you know, this we're feeling this, you know, and he would just ignore it, and got to the point where, long story short, we never reconciled. In fact, he got sick towards COVID, and she moved him out of the hospital because she didn't want me to know where he was at, and he passed away a year later.
Oh my!
So or a couple years later, I never got to talk to him again. So, and during that time, that family was spreading rumors about me and the church that were false. And I was a deacon at this church, Josh. So I had to make the decision to say, you know what, this isn't for me. I can't worship in truth and spirit here, because I'm worried about what people are thinking about me, which is totally my problem, right? I mean, that's not. Yeah. But we ended up having to leave. But during that time, and I think you and I were talking, I was on that path, man. I was running, man. Mm-hmm. Okay, I had good speed. Mm-hmm. I was comfortable, and then I jumped into a muddy water, and I'm trying to find my way back.
Let me ask you this. Let's put a pin in it right there. Is that how you transitioned to Kingwood? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's stop there, because this is fascinating to me, man. And you and I have never talked about this in detail,
right?
So I won't mention the name either, but so when Ashley and Jackson was already born, because Jackson was born in Arkansas when I was there doing my master's. We were living in Rutherford County, and we found a church, and we started going, and we experienced the same thing in so much as we finally kind of got into a groove, you know? And like, I really felt like I was in a good place. Okay. And it was one of those things where, I wanted to go to church services. Like I wanted to be there. I eventually got to the point where I was teaching class, and I got good feedback when I taught class, which inspired me to study more and be more involved. I would fill in every once in a while to preach. My son and I did a joint sermon together.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, when he was little, because he wanted to preach. I baptized my son there. I baptized my daughter there. So it was like the same thing. You know, it was like, it felt like this is good. Like we're going in a good direction. And then really, I think for me, it was COVID that really started to kind of change everything. And I'll try to be very fair, because I know that I have certain personality traits that are a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. They're good in a way, right? But they can also be very bad. And one of those is I tend to be pretty vocal about, like, if I see something that I don't think is right, I'm not scared to go, hey, I don't think this is right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. And I can, whatever. I've got my own personality, and maybe it's not good sometimes. But, you know, when the COVID stuff came on, first of all, that was just a totally weird, scary time.
No doubt.
And I had a lot of just emotional back and forth, like what's real, what's not real. You know, it was very difficult to sit and watch the news about all of the bad stuff that's going on and then see decisions that the government's making that seems to be completely opposite of what you just said. I mean, yeah. But then what really started to get to me is the way I saw the church respond to it. And I was like, wait a minute, we're like, and I'm not saying they were right or wrong about it. I'm just saying this is where I was coming from. I felt like, okay, wait, if we're going to sit around and talk about how, you know, we're not of this world, mm-hmm. you know, our faith is in God and we're called to do certain things. It's not you're called to do them unless somebody's got the sniffles. It's like you're called to do them. Mm-hmm. And do we have enough faith that we can do them? Or we're like, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing them. And then we quit meeting. Or you go to this stuff where it's like outside, stay in your car, and we completely destroy fellowship, you know, in the name of COVID. So long story short, some things happened there. And it was basically told to me and Ashley standing out in the parking lot one day. We were talking to someone and we said, look, we're really struggling. This is where we're struggling. This is how we're struggling. And in some, the response that we got was, well, maybe y'all need to find somewhere else. And that was a gut punch. Mm. That was a gut punch because I was like, that's not what I expected. Like, but that is kind of then what put us in what I would call this wandering phase. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because we didn't go straight from there to Kingwood, right? We went from there to like, let's go visit over here. Let's go visit over here. Let's go see what they've got, you know? Yeah. And then the difficulty was by this point, we've got 3 kids. You're trying to find something that fits for all 3 with different personalities. And that's how we end up at Kingwood where we met y'all.
Yeah. You know, we didn't do that, Josh. We watched online, and I saw Kingwood and said, "Yeah, it looks good. Let's go there." Did not visit around. God put us there for a reason. We met a lot of great people there, but just Eric and I just really never got our footing, and that's probably more so on us than it is anybody else. Ryan did really well there, but anyway. Yeah, I mean that period was tough, and Josh, you know that was it was an uncertainty that our generation's never faced, and when you have social media out pushing different narratives, you're right. You don't know what to believe, what not to believe. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. You're like, wait, what's going on? Right? Work just completely. I mean, and that work. You know, I'm going to go squirrel on you here for a minute, but I mean, work just completely. I mean, you guys aren't allowed in here. Sales,
really?
Sales stopped. You know, you got to make your calls. I mean,
is it just like work from home?
Yeah, work from home. And I've been working from home mostly now for getting ready to go back in the office just because that's what. But anyway, yeah. So it's just crazy how just things just started changing. I guarantee you, if we were to just compare what's going on with what we have right now versus what we experienced in 20, because it almost seems like years ago, and it really wasn't.
Right.
You'd feel like we were living in a different country.
Oh, I agree. 100%, dude. 100%. And look, man, I've told this story multiple times, But so like for me, Ashley and I are very different in a lot of ways. Okay. With Ashley, all through the COVID thing, Ashley's approach was, look, I'm going to be sensible about what I do. I'm not going to take unnecessary risks, but I'm going to live my life. Okay. I, maybe in part because I had much more interaction with the public, because at that point, all of the kids were being homeschooled anyway. So I was really the one on a daily basis that left the house and went out into the world to begin with. And I'm going to court at that. Okay. So I was very like, I don't know what this is. You know, at first, when all of this happened, the first time I remember COVID in my mind is March 13th. It was a Friday the 13th in 2020. And the only reason I remember that is because I was in court that day. I was in circuit court here in Murfreesboro, and there was a guy sitting next to me. I still remember who it was. And the guy was sitting next to me. We're waiting on docket call or whatever, and he was like, "Hey man, the word is the Supreme Court's going to shut us down." I was like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah." And I probably up to that point had known that, like, I don't know, something's going on, but maybe at the same level as like I knew bird flu was a thing at some point. You know, I was like, whatever,
you weren't
man.
thinking, you weren't thinking that.
Yeah, it's no big deal. I went to lunch that day. I went to lunch at Fat Guy's Barbecue, and I was sitting there by myself eating, and my phone goes off, and sure enough, Supreme Court put the order down, shut down court throughout the state of Tennessee. Wow. And that kind of set in motion this kind of weird uncertainty. Like, what is this? What does this mean? Right. And there's so much that we could talk about there, because I've said, and I believe this to some degree, like I've said before, like I think COVID kind of saved my life a little bit, because before COVID, I was 100,000 miles an hour all the time. Now, some people would be like, well, dude, nothing's really changed. That's kind of how you still are. But like but COVID forced me to stop, which was actually very healthy for me.
It forced everybody to stop.
Yeah.
And that's and I don't mean to interrupt you at all, but if there's a positive from COVID,
yeah,
the slowness.
I agree.
We had to slow down.
You had to stop.
And you spent more time with your family probably than you've had in years.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
If you're work, so yeah.
But, in the background, you're still worried, like, well, what am I doing with my business?
Yeah.
Like, because now in my business, like, why would somebody call and hire me for a court case when they're not going to court? That just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then, so you're watching that, and you're really trying to get a handle on, okay, what do I do? Because I want to be smart. I want to make sure my family's healthy, safe, taken care of. I don't want to be stupid about it. But, then you're like, okay, only essential businesses can remain open. You're like, okay, well, I understand this. This, like, intuitively, this makes sense. Like, people have to be able to get gas. They have to be able to get groceries. But then it's like, but they also have to be able to get beer and go to the strip joint. So I'm like, wait a minute, what? And then you start to go, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like, what's really happening? Because you can't tell me that buying a 40 is as essential as like getting milk from the come on, man.
That's right.
What's happening? Now there's politics involved, right? And then I had this big back and forth. Obviously that you kind of go through that. 2 weeks to flatten the curve turns into forever. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. It just, and during that whole time, you've got both sides barking at you. Like on one side, you've got people barking at you. Well, why are you wearing that mask, man? You're just giving in. You're just like the people in Nazi Germany. You're just going along with it. And you got the people on the other side. If you dare walk into Publix without a mask one day, like, oh, you're going to kill everybody.
That's right.
That kind. So you're just bombarded. And all you're trying to do is like, dude, I'm trying to be reasonable about whatever I'm supposed to do and not be political.
That's right. You want to be respectful of the people around you, but you go to the extreme. Look at where we're at today, though.
Yeah.
With this. When's the last time you even heard that name? I mean, people are still getting it, but it's not dominating the news waves.
No.
In fact, once, man, I don't know how far you want to go with this, but once the agenda was met.
That's exactly right.
It disappeared.
Dude, and that's what I have come to. I'm not saying I never believed that was a possibility. I've got friends that got to that conclusion way faster than I did, okay? I don't think that's because I'm stupid. I think it's because mentally I function a little differently. And it's not better, okay? I'm not saying that. It's just that I tend to analyze different.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, you might tell me something today, and I go, oh, little red flag goes up in my mind. I'm like, I'm going to put that, and I'm going to watch it. But I'm not going to draw any conclusions yet. I want more proof. You know, so the mask thing bugged me a lot.
Yeah, same here.
And it didn't make any sense. Like, I'm sitting there looking at it, I'm like, I'm not even a scientist, dude, but how does this even make sense? I literally just bought this mask from freaking Target, okay, that somebody just saw an open market possibility and they started manufacturing masks with like cool logos on it. You're telling me if I breathe through this t-shirt material, somehow it's all better. You're good. You're good, man. No problem. You know, and I've got my wife who used to work in the pharmacy doing compounding. And I was like, well, didn't y'all wear masks in the front? She goes, yeah, but it's like, so we don't spit in the drugs, you know?
Yeah.
And then you kind of transition, right? And then just to be fair, the next struggle that I personally had, which Ashley didn't, was the vaccine stuff. Mm-hmm. Because like the vaccine rolls out and I'm like, okay, intuitively, I'm like, I'm nervous about this though, because this is fast.
Yes.
This is
very fast.
And I'm already suspect because you can get beer and go to a strip joint, but you can't go to church. I don't know how much I can trust you to tell me to put this in my body. And then you start to see the reports of stuff coming out, like adverse effects and things like that. But I'm still conflicted, you know? And I know friends of mine that were just like, Josh, it's stupid, man. Don't. But dude, there were days where I would sit at my office and I would call Ashley because she's always been my soundboard. And I'd be like, hey, I think I'm going to get the vaccine on the way home. And she's like, look, you do what you want to do. If you think it's the right thing to do, I'm not doing it. And so I never did. And I'm going to tell you something, Glenn, and this isn't to judge anybody else, but today, like, I'm glad I didn't because I don't really know. But all of that goes into that uncertainty. Yeah. Nobody knew anything. But we had people standing in front of us acting like if we don't do what they tell us to do right now, the whole world's going to die because of you.
Well, and then, I don't even know if this is the right word. I want to say persecution. But you're almost told in the corporate America, at least in my job, if you don't do this and you don't have a receipt of it, there could be repercussions.
Yep.
I took it.
Yep. Because you didn't have a choice.
Eric and I had to take it. Well,
you've got a choice, but your choice is I can give up my livelihood and try to start over and hope everything will be okay.
Right. And so I struggle with that, Josh. I went to the last minute to the point of even going to HR and saying, you've got no basis to tell me I have to do this.
Right.
But I did it.
Yeah.
And you know, looking back at it, I wish I wouldn't have done it. Now, in all fairness, neither I or Erica have felt any effects from it. At least I don't think so. But, man, it's just crazy time. And our kids suffered from it.
Absolutely, they did.
I mean, and you can tell, I don't know, and I know you had Ava here on your first broadcast. I quite loved that. Sweet spirit and soul. And she's outgoing. I don't know if you noticed, my son's not so much around us, but I can tell you I've seen other kids where their social lives who pre-2019, not anywhere close to what it is. Well, it diminished tremendously, and they're trying.
Okay? Yeah. On the phone.
And I'm looking on the,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. So it's interesting that you say that. So Juliana was really young, or younger, obviously. So the impact was not quite as severe on her. Jackson, honestly, the thing that kind of quote unquote saved Jackson is he's been kind of an old soul his whole life anyway. Mm-hmm. Jackson would largely just as soon sit in his room and clean his guns as talk to anybody anyway. So it's like, yeah, I'm good.
This is great.
Whatever, man. You know. Now, but Ava struggled. I mean, struggled.
I can believe it.
It was bad. Mm-hmm. And I know we've kind of gone around the world on this one now, but to get it back to the church, that's where the church started coming back in. Is like, guys, look, we're battling all these things out here in the world. wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Everybody's dying. Nobody's dying. Take a vaccine. Don't take a vaccine. I mean, we're getting bombarded. This is the time that the church needs to be together.
Amen.
This is not the time that the church needs to have up caution tape going, hey, don't talk to anybody. Just jump on YouTube and we'll get this done.
That's right.
And I was so angry about that. Like, what are we doing, man? We're legit in the world struggling right now emotionally. This is the time we're supposed to be coming together and being like, hey, it's going to be okay. Let's put our faith where it's supposed to be. And instead it's, well, the leadership has decided that it's probably better that we discontinue services and we will try to record things and put out there.
Yeah.
And like that and I know, look, man, it's easy now, 2024. I can sit here and be like, well, I wasn't the one that had to make that decision. I understand all those things.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can sit here and say, honestly, I don't think you can sit here and say it was the right decision. Mm-hmm. Not with what we know now.
Right.
Okay. And that may be a little unfair, but here's the other thing. I don't think you can sit here and say that it didn't negatively impact the church.
Oh, well, there's 100%.
Because it did.
100%. Yeah. And here's the thing. Jesus told his disciples what? They'll know them by their love. You can't spread that love if you got your buildings closed.
Right.
And if those who are hungry for that weren't going to church anyway, they're not going to go on YouTube or Facebook and search for church.
Yeah.
Well, that can be debated, and that can be, we can get down a rabbit hole with that. But that's exactly right. And I know friends who I pray for every day who have just now stopped going because of that. It was because, they just got comfortable not going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only by the grace of God did we get pulled out of that. Because it can be. You can be at home. Josh, and I mean, again, your last slow down, that's the good part, but it also could be a bad thing because now you're just sitting home and you're just getting comfortable and you're like, I don't have to do anything. Yeah. And you kind of get out of the quote norm.
Well, and they gave you a justification for it. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't that Glenn just quit going to church and now in the back of your mind, you're like, man, somebody's probably going to call me here in a couple of weeks because they're not seeing me. No, it's cool now.
Yeah.
In fact, Glenn, we want you to stay home.
Yeah.
We don't want you to come anywhere near us. And so now you're like, oh, okay. And so watch, this is what happened with us, at least. I'm not going to speak for you, but so for us, it was, okay, we're going to go to online services. So on the front end, I actually participated in the online services. And I look, I'll give them great credit for this. The minister that was there did a lot of work. He really cared about the youth at that particular congregation. And we would film ourselves doing little pieces of a skit that would then get put together, and we would put that up on Sunday on the YouTube channel or whatever, know. But what happened is over a period of weeks, you just do that less and less and less and less, and then it just So getting back to the impact on the kids, Ava is the one that, man, it was a struggle because she is so social. Mm-hmm. I was thinking when you were talking, if you think of like the person in your life that you're the closest to, mm-hmm. right? Outside of your family, right? Like your closest friend. Mm-hmm. If I were to ask you, hey man, would you be okay from now till the rest of your life? Like you can talk to that friend as much as you want to, but only on the phone. Mm. You can never meet them for dinner. You can never go to a ball game. Like you wouldn't do that.
I know.
But that's exactly what we did in the church. We said, hey, the person that you're supposed to be the closest to, God, like you can still talk to him. And we'll put some stuff up on YouTube. You can watch him from home, but like you can't get together with his people. Mm. That's what we did, man.
Yeah, and I believe even people were meeting in their homes and they were even getting
in trouble for it.
Gosh, man.
Yeah.
Sad to think that we could be headed toward. Anyway.
Hey, look. But look, people can say what they want to say. Glenn and Josh, conspiracy theory number one, whatever. I don't care. The fact of the matter is, look at what we know now.
That's right.
Okay? Whether they will openly admit it or not, look at what we know now. Look at how we were manipulated as a people. Mm-hmm. Okay? Yep. For what I personally believe was evil intent.
No doubt. Yep.
All right.
Agree.
So, hey, if I'm a little bit more cautious now, That's a result of it. Oh,
yeah.
well, man.
Yeah. And we were so naive only because we've never been through something like
Yes.
that. Now, I've seen it. I don't know. I honestly don't watch the news very much. I do check it occasionally, and supposedly there's something that they might be bringing again or something. I mean,
Of course.
Well,
we've got an election
Well, we do
coming
have
up.
an election coming up. So they've already rigged one. So how they're going to do this one?
Right.
But it's like, it got you so used to normal. Praise God, we got out of that, and we're slowly starting to get back to it. We're nowhere near where we were.
No.
I don't know that we'll ever be, but man, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, the church suffered tremendously. It's still reaping those repercussions today.
So I think so.
4 years removed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and here's one of the ways, right? And this is kind of in part where I wanted to get to with you, because we started off talking about where we met. We met at the same place. So as we were kind of looking around, figuring out where we can go, who is meeting, those types of things, we then started thinking about youth group, because Jackson and Ava were old enough to be in a youth group, and especially Ava really needed that. Mm-hmm. That was a real struggle for us, because what Jackson needs is very different than what Ava needs. But that's how we ended up landing at Kingwood, right? I mean, we're meeting, for worship. There's a large, at least from what we had experienced in our life, every church we grew up in, they had a huge youth group, right? Because we grew up in these small country churches. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where we ended up. And then I'll just be honest, man, what made me stumble, or I guess what made me fall, right? If I say COVID was the stumble, the COVID was kind of like that when you're running and you've got pretty good speed, but you start to trip over your feet and you're trying to catch yourself and you haven't fallen quite yet.
Yeah.
That was COVID. All right. But I'm going to be real with you, dude. Youth group is what put us in the dirt. It blew my mind. The level of, I fall short of saying hate, because I don't think it's hate, but the level of nastiness and backbiting and gossip, all supported by parents, blew me away. Dude, you hear stories of kids that like go to school, and you'll read, mom says, well, Junior comes home crying every day because this one kid in his class is always picking on him, that kind of stuff. Our daughter, it got to a point, dude, where we didn't leave church services on a Sunday where she wasn't crying. And finally, and that's tough, because you look at that and you go, well, that's an easy thing. Get out of there.
Yeah.
But you got two other kids.
Right.
And those two other kids, they're actually doing okay. And so what do you do,
Well, I grew up in I won't mention this church either, where I was somewhat bullied in a youth group. My sister was flourishing in the youth group.
Yeah.
So my parents, and I didn't really, now there's the difference between a guy and a girl. I never really said anything about it. I just sucked it up until finally I did. And some of these kids were going to the school I was at and doing the same thing at school. But that's supposed to be your safe place.
Right.
That's supposed to be your safe place. And when it's not your safe place and you're dealing with it in school and church, both, man, that's traumatizing.
Well, what I realized, Glenn, is that for all the talk we did about how the church is separate from the world, how we are called out to be different, I began to notice, at least in some respects, that the church is just a microcosm of the world. I mean, there's no reason. I'm not saying that people have to be perfect. I get that, right? And trust me, I've got my own flaws too. There have been plenty of people who can go do podcasts about the time that they talked to Josh Crane and I was a jerk to him, or I was sarcastic, or I said stuff I shouldn't have said. All right, there is plenty of material out there to use against me too. But you're right, man. When you look at a youth group and you're like, my kid should feel safe there. What I want for my kid when they're in youth group is I want them to feel like, all right, breathe now. You're in a place where the world can't hurt you right now. So build up that strength, get that reserve going. Establish those solid relationships that you're going to need for the rest of your life. And while mom and dad are where we are, we can breathe. All right, everybody relax. It's almost like we're in the bunker now.
Yep.
We're safe.
Yep.
But then you come out and you realize, no, you ain't safe. Because the bullying is happening, the picking is happening, the backbiting is happening, the gossip is happening. And then what you begin to experience is you go, okay, well, let's address this the way that, it's the way we were taught to address stuff. Like you go to an adult and you're like, hey, look, man, let's talk about this. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not, maybe that's your daughter. Maybe she needs to look at her. And you're like, holy cow.
Yeah, like, wait
right?
a second.
What?
Yeah.
But I say that to say that's what then put, at least me, that's what put me in the dirt. And I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, and so trying not to, Erica and I we just felt like we just couldn't make connections. And while that's important, it's important for Ryan to make connections. But Josh, I don't know what your experience was in the youth group. Once we actually ended up changing churches, which just ended up being my saving grace. I got really close with you. I mean, we did stuff together all the time. That wasn't happening at our previous two stops. I mean, church was fine, retreats were fine, but there was no building. Where we're at now, it's amazing. And I can tell a difference. And not only can I tell a difference, I can tell a difference in how Ryan has grown just from this summer alone, in his faith, and him actually wanting to talk to me about it. It's never happened before in his 15 years. Praise God for that. I mean, they have a text. I mean, we're experiencing on a whole different level that God answered our prayers. And man, it's crazy to see it.
See, that's interesting, man, because so we ended up at the same place, just different campuses.
Yeah.
So Jackson, prior to where we are now, Jackson would go if youth group was doing something extra, but didn't necessarily really want to, just kind of whatever. And Ava wanted to because she's that social person.
Yeah.
Where he's at now, he goes to everything that they have.
That's incredible. Praise God.
And I was thinking this just recently. I really wish we had found them sooner because Jackson graduated this past year. So now he's out of the youth group, Yeah. And I wish he had more time. But dude, he ended up going to Mexico a month ago on their mission trip. He goes and he does stuff to get their service hours, that they've got to get.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just been really good. I mean, Wednesday, so with his schedule, he works at the sheriff's department now. Mm-hmm. And on Wednesday, he was off. He was off Wednesday, Thursday. And, I figured he would just kind of relax because he works 12-hour shifts or whatever. And like Wednesday afternoon, he was like, he's starting to get ready. I was like, oh, hey, where you going, bud? He's like, I'm gonna go to youth group. They're doing their last Devo tonight as a group. And like I was in bed before he got home, which is weird for him because he called me and he's like, hey, some of the teens are going to go to Sonic on Las Casas after Devo. Do you care if I go? And like, he's more involved now.
That's awesome.
It is, man.
And see, I always loved Jackson. I would always interact with him at church, and I would always see him. He was by himself. That's Jackson to me, right? And to hear that just brings a smile to me, man. That's incredible. Yeah. That's awesome, and I know that brings a smile to you too.
Oh yeah, it does. But for me, I think Ashley's in a pretty good place right now. I know Juliana is. Ava's in a much better place than she has been in the past.
Good.
I think within the family, I'm the one that's not where I used to be.
Yeah.
Because I used to be the guy that was like, I couldn't wait for you to come to me and go, hey, could you cover class? Heck yeah, I'm doing it. Let's go. Like, I love teaching, man.
Yeah.
I love teaching.
Yeah.
But when we moved over and we're going to where we go now, like, I haven't even asked about teaching.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not that I don't want to. It's not that I don't care. I think almost it's more of a, I've been down this road so many times and I see what happens. You know, there are certain, and that's the other thing. When you go to a Josh Crane classes are not what I call safe classes.
We went to one at Kingwood, man. I loved it. And I remember looking at Eric, I said, I'm getting to know that guy. It was real.
Yeah. I don't say that. I mean, I'm not a flamethrower all the time. It's not that.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are things we need to talk about and like, let's discuss it. And if we disagree, we can disagree, but like, let's work through it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead of just being safe and fluffy all the time. I haven't gotten back to that yet. You know?
Well, Josh, sometimes, and this is how, so you know how involved I was with the youth at Kingwood. At least I think you do.
Yeah.
I know we really didn't meet until towards the end there. I actually taken a step back this time because, one, I want to let Ryan have his time. And we've been at this church, I think, since we've been visiting since February. We placed membership, I think, in April. I just recently, Eric and I are teaching middle school, but I said, I'm not forcing myself in it. I'm going to let them come ask me. Now, some people might say, well, man, okay, it's fine.
Right.
I'm going to serve in other aspects of it, but I'm not getting into this because I need to find my footing. It's just as important for you to find your footing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And recharge and just bask in his glory. And I'm not saying that we're not called to serve because you can serve in other ways, right? I mean, us serving doesn't stop once church is over.
Right.
We're serving Monday through Sunday, baby.
Yeah.
At our job, whatever. So I'm not telling you what to do, but that could be somewhat of a good thing too, Josh, for you to find your footing and just get comfortable, because when you're hurt like that and you go through that, you're just thinking, well, what's going to screw it up this time?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And you're kind of you're walking, you feel like maybe you're walking on eggshells with it.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, man, look, just to be totally transparent with you. I mean, one of the things that I struggle with is being judgmental.
Yeah.
I tend to be the guy, and I think if Ashley was in here, she would tell you the same thing. She would say, like, yeah, if you need somebody to tag along with you to point out what's wrong, like Josh can do it. Like that's what Josh does, And I think there's a lot of reasons probably that I am that way. And I don't like, I'll work on that. I don't want to be that. I do want to be positive, but I do feel a lot of times like that seems to be a natural place that my mind goes, is the negative, right? I question things. And I've got to be better about that, because I recognize that a lot of it is, that's the way I think it should be done. And if you're not doing it that way, then, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think because I came through the experiences that I came through, it kind of, in a way, it puts a sour taste in your mouth across the board.
Right.
Right. And so then you see everything through that lens, instead of being more humble and being like, all right, I need to focus on me. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to fix me, quit worrying about what everybody else is.
Hard to do.
I know it.
And one of the toughest things that I struggle with today is loving myself and forgiving myself, knowing that God's forgiven me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's tough to do when you go through hurt. And I'm going to go back to my dad today. I mean, even today, praise God, I've been able to forgive those people. It took me 3 years to do it, to get to that spot, and I'm able to talk to it now without breaking down or feel like I want to punch a hole through the wall. I feel like I went through that because there's going to be somebody in my life at some point in time where I'm going to be able to share that testimony of how God brought me out of that. Okay?
Yeah.
Could be the same thing maybe for you or for Ava. I just feel like we go through certain seasons in our life, and man, when we're going through that, we're like, why are we going through this? Yeah. We're in such a good spot. Almost the same way at your church, with our church experiences. I mean, my heart was on fire. We were involved in everything, and then all of a sudden, it's gone.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to find that at every church we've been to, and really we just need to let God just, where do I need to be? Where do you want me?
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
It is, dude. Man, it's so hard. Because, I mean, dude, I could sit here right now and I could be like, I can pickpoint things and just go, why do we do this? Why do we do this? Why do we do this? I don't like this. You know? But you're right. And but I also think, at least for me, it's a matter of trying to lower my own guard and being more submissive and more humble instead of whatever the opposite of all that is, you know, just kind of releasing myself, you know. I'll give you an example. This is going to sound corny, but whatever, man. It's just, it's where I'm coming from in life, right?
Yeah.
All right. So obviously I grew up, I've always been with the Church of Christ. Okay. My dad was Church of Christ preacher. And there were things that I was taught that I was never taught things in the way that I think society would describe them. Like a lot of times I think people think about the Church of Christ like we're a cult.
Yes.
You know? Yes. It ain't that. But, you know, there was just certain things like I was taught, and I was given a reason or a way to analyze things, right? And the way my dad taught me was there are things in the Bible that are direct commandments. There are things in the Bible that are by example. And then there are things that are not in the Bible. So, you know, his approach with me was when you're trying to figure out, for example, in corporate worship, if something is acceptable or not, do you have a command to do it? If the answer is no, okay. Do you have an example of where it was done? And don't go to the Old Testament. The Old Testament's been done away with, okay. Do you have an example in the New Testament where the New Testament church did that? If the answer is no, then you're probably safer not to do it. Right? That was just kind of his approach, right? So let me give you this example. It doesn't necessarily fall into that pattern, but so where we're at now, and you may have experienced this where you're at, I don't know what all your history is, but this is the first place I've ever been where during like song service, like people are raising their hands.
Yes.
Like I've never experienced that before.
Yes.
Now I've also noticed, and this doesn't surprise me, it tends to be a female thing predominantly. Okay. If you pay attention to that, I'm not saying men don't do it.
Yes.
But it's predominantly a female thing, which I think makes sense because it's an emotional type thing. But they'll sing songs and you're like, you see, raise their hands, you know? Now, I'm going to be fair, again, totally transparent. This is my podcast. I'll say what I want to say, right? When I first experienced that, my gut feeling was, a show off.
Yeah. You want to be
seen.
Yep.
Right? And I started thinking about how, like we're told in the Bible, like when you pray, don't pray as those guys do, like out there where everybody can see you. Oh, Lord, see how good I'm praying, right? That's what I thought. But then to be honest, like the longer I've gone, every once in a while we'll hit one of those songs that I like just hits me really different. And like there's this part of me that wants to do that wants to like physically like just reach out.
Surrender.
But I don't.
Yeah.
And I feel that conflict within me, right? It's like, are you holding yourself back? Is that God's spirit moving on you going, hey, dude, chill.
Yeah.
Relax. Just open up, you know? I don't even know why I'm telling you that. It's an interesting thing to feel differently. Yeah. You know, and you're seeing that. And I think the more I see that, the more I start to feel like there's a lot of genuineness here.
Yeah. I know. I grew up in the Church of Christ. This is the 100% first church where I've experienced that. We have visited other churches where I've seen it. But that was my thought too. And I thought to myself, I'll never do that. Until I just felt the Spirit come over me. What, and maybe this is a question, and golly, this is something we could probably talk about for hours. What does worship in truth and spirit that we're called to worship look like?
Right.
To me, Josh, this is just Glenn Shaw's opinion. That's almost impossible to do. to worship fully in truth and spirit almost every time. But when you surrender yourself, and I've noticed this sometimes with me, if I just surrender myself and just going out, we try to pray every morning before we go to church, just to say, hey, clear our hearts and our minds. Whatever's going on personally, just clear it. Help us to worship in truth and spirit, whatever that looks like. I've noticed myself, not fully, but maybe just lifting my hands up.
Right.
Because I just feel it. But then there are times when I'm like, man, I just don't know. So.
Let me ask you this, man. You're a sports guy. Is it like a particular sport that is your, like, I love it?
College football.
Okay, college football. So if I were to say to you, Glenn, you love football so much, I'm going to supply the location, I'm going to supply the referees, and I'm going to supply the equipment that you need. You just put two teams together. And you get those two teams together, and then you're, all right, dude, we're ready to roll. And I go, all right, man, meet me at my office. And y'all all roll up here at the office. You pile out of like a couple of vans or buses. You're like, all right, where are we going? It's like, just right in here in the office. I got a hallway here that's probably, 15 feet long? Have at it. You're going to tell me what?
It's too small.
It's too small. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, this is not conducive to, I was like, well, wait a minute. You know the rules of football, right?
Yeah.
You know how many players you have to have, right? You know the goal is to score, right? Okay, so why can't you do that? Because you're being constricted.
Yeah.
All right, so this is, I'm just throwing this out there for you to think about. The way that we worship on Sundays is a formula that you and I grew up with.
Right.
It's always been that way. Now, the formula may vary a little bit, right? I mean, when we vary in very specific ways, though, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, welcome everybody, 2 songs, sit, 1 song, prayer, 1 song, Lord's Supper, or we might do sermon, then Lord's Supper. That's about as crazy as we get.
That's right.
Right? But that's the formula.
Yeah.
And you have to fit that all in within about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do any more than that. Right? So now go back to your query. How do you worship in spirit and truth? I don't have the answer, but I do feel that maybe if you and I were whiteboarding this right now, we'd say, okay, what do we need to do first? Do away with the format.
Yep.
We are constricting ourselves and saying we have to fit all these things in within this particular period of time. And I'm going to tell you something else. I remember this, dude. This may not have been the very first class I ever taught in my life, but it was pretty close to the first class I ever taught. I was in McMinnville. I was a district attorney at the time, and I was young. Boy, I was much more willing to say what I wanted to say even then than I am now. But I taught a class on why we did not actually need paid preachers. Why the church should go back to the itinerant preacher, because an itinerant preacher is not beholden to any particular body for a paycheck. They don't have to govern what they say based on, what the leadership wants to hear or doesn't want to hear. They are free to preach the truth. And if that particular congregation goes, hey, don't ever have Glenn Shaw back, well, okay, but the church down the road will.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the first one I ever taught. Think about this, man. We have examples in the Bible, obviously, Paul teaching people. Mm-hmm. But I don't personally believe that I'm not the Bible scholar, but I can't think of an example we have in the New Testament where the church got together and the central focus of worship was a preacher giving a sermon.
Right.
But that's what we've made it.
That's right. We've
made it the Glenn Shaw show with a couple other things that we throw in, songs, Lord's Supper, whatever, as opposed to maybe when we fellowship, maybe we need to get together. Maybe we need to focus on the Lord's Supper first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And maybe instead of having the hour's up, let's go, it needs to be, hey, now let's like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that hits. I feel like you and I have talked about that before. That hits hard. Yeah, no doubt. And That's one thing I love about where we go now. There's not really a format per se. I mean, I guess there still is a format.
You have to have some structure.
But you do. But I feel like it's more free. Man, look, in the Bible, it doesn't tell you what format. I used to love that, and I used to remember. I don't know if you remember this. My dad was a deacon in the church. He wasn't a preacher. But I just remember they'd have meetings on. Well, I just don't know if we should have class before service.
Yeah.
Like, we really debating that?
Yeah.
Is that a salvation issue here?
Yeah.
We can get up there and just, what about this class at 9 o'clock? Not, I don't know.
But think about this, dude. Okay, look. Man, see, we're going to go forever now. And we knew going into this, just so our audience understands the two that are left listening at this point. Yeah. All right, we knew this was going to be just all over the board today, but
I apologize. It's my fault.
No. It's mine. But think about this. I've said this for years and years. People don't like it. I firmly believe it. One of the biggest problems that I think we face as the church that feeds into a lot of the things that you and I have dealt with is the church started functioning as a business as opposed to a body of believers.
Yep.
And you can sit here and tell me, well, no, that's not really true. Okay, let me tell you something. When we have discussions about whether we should have classes before or after the service, it's largely because we don't want people leaving after class and not coming to service because it's at service that we ask you to give.
That's right, man.
Yeah, and the whole do not lay up in store. Well, that doesn't really apply to our building fund that has $1.4 million in it in case we need to expand the Lord's kingdom. I mean, there's all kinds of things like that I look at and I go, because we're functioning like a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you have to function like a business when you structure yourself in such a way that you have to generate income just to keep functioning.
Yeah.
Right. But at what point does it become, or I'm not saying at what point, let me ask you this way. Can we at least agree that if generating money is a necessary, generating money can overshadow the other things that you need to be doing?
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll say it this way too, and I think you and even had this conversation at lunch one time. We're supposed to give 100%. But you can give in different ways, man. I mean, you see someone on the side of the street just dying of thirst. I mean, you see them just thirsty.
Right.
You know what? I gave to my church. I tithe this week.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
What? And man, I can go deep with this whole paying stuff. You know, I specifically asked a church one time, hey, I want to give to you, but I want to make sure it goes to missionary movement. I don't want this to go anywhere else. Mm-hmm. How to make sure it does that? Just put that on the 2 line. Okay. Now, we talked prior to this how I would overanalyze that. Well, I don't know they're going to go to that. It would stir my mind for probably 24 hours. Are they really going to do that? Josh, that's between them and God.
Yeah.
I had to really, and so, churches got to function. They got to keep the lights on. I get that. But I remember being at churches where they would make a whole Sunday morning about giving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And in fact, my father-in-law stopped going to churches because of that. He's like, man, all they want is my money.
Well, and here's the thing, and I'll just be honest. Like, that's an area that I've struggled with for a long, long time. Because look, we're told, pretty sure it's Paul that says, that a preacher is worth his keep. I mean, but I know several years ago, my dad was talking to me about this, and my dad had visited different congregations in a particular area and gotten a copy of their budgets so he could analyze them. And on average, I think what he found was the percentage on average of the budget that went to mission work was about 3%. 3%. Now, think about this. If there is one message that you will hear within the church a very high percentage of the time, it's a message revolving around the Great Commission, right?
That's right.
Go into all the world, making disciples, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? That you'll hear message after message about how we are to be disciple makers. Well, that's what a missionary is.
Yeah.
And we give them the lowest percentage we can possibly give them. And then we'll parade them in once or twice a year so that the body can see them and go, oh, this is so-and-so from whatever country, and he's one of the missionaries that we support. But if you look at the rest of the budget, salaries, pretty healthy salaries for
Administrative.
Administrative, building fund, the bonds that we want to buy, the investments that we want to make. And so you go, well, okay, are we in the disciple making business? Or are we in the physical church growth business? And those two things to me are different. And I think a lot of times we try to put them together. Well, the bigger we are, right, the bigger the body is here, the more we can do in the world, right? That kind of thing. But I question sometimes whether that's what we're actually doing.
I think that can be done, though. Agree, disagree. I think it can be done, but it takes work.
What can be done?
So I think you can grow both your missionary and your church.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I agree with
and
that.
You know that. But you know what? These mega churches, for example, man. And then you see what these guys are pulling in, and you see them with it just really makes you wonder. And they're people that just love these things. And man, they're all in it for themselves. And then you have to really think, okay, is this, and I don't know, we haven't been going here too long, but I know at other churches, they would, and all the churches I've been to, there'd be one Sunday a month where they'd pass out the sheet, and you would look at it. And I would look at it and be like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I'm a finance guy. There are times I look at it and I'm just like, there's no way I'm reading this right.
Yeah.
There's no way this is what it looks like. It's somewhat troubling. It troubles you sometimes. But Josh, you and I were talking before we started taping, overanalyzing things.
Right.
Right. Erica would always look at me. She's like, that's not your job.
Yeah.
And I had to say, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
Because it would bother me the rest of the day.
And that's how Ashley is with me, which is a much better way to be. But look, I'm glad we had this little piece of the conversation, because you can probably hear in my voice the disagreement that I have with that approach. And I know, see, that's my nature. If I begin to focus on things like that, I can run with it. And I can begin that, like you say, I can overanalyze it, and then I can justify why I disagree, right? When really what I need to be doing is like, dude, just worry about you.
Yeah.
Worry about you. I mean, because here's the thing. I don't want to meet Jesus one day and him be like, Josh, so I heard that podcast you did with Glenn. And, you made some good points, Josh. I too was a little disappointed with some of the ways that the church was handling certain things, and not the way at all that I would have done it or the way that I wanted it done. That was a very astute observation, Josh. Now depart from me. I do not know you. I don't want that.
No.
Right? Because I'm going to be like, whoa, wait, what? He's, oh, yeah, Josh. So you did really great with that whole finding the speck in your brother's eye. But, man, you were horrible about dealing with your own.
That's powerful.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I got to get, man.
Me too.
That's where I got to get. And I think it's like, dude, we all have something. Right? I can't remember which preacher it was that said it first, but one of the preachers I've been in front of, said, look, we all have our cross to bear.
Yep.
Mine may be different than yours, right? There may be some overlap in areas, but we all have something that we struggle with. I think ultimately it's about how do you fight your battle so that you're doing what you have to do for you and for your immediate family?
Yep.
Before you start worrying about everything else.
And here's the thing. You give Satan just that tiny little crack. And
he'll take it, brother.
He'll take it, baby.
He'll take it.
And
that's a fact.
And this stuff right here that we're talking about, whereas it's important to talk about it. Is it a salvation issue? That's not made to judge. No, and I don't think it is really. But Satan is going to use that where he's like, man, you don't need to be there. You don't even need to go.
Exactly. That's where it is right there, man. Because he's like, yeah, he knows. And he knows me, dude. He's like, I know how Josh is.
He knows you better than you know yourself.
Yeah, he knows me. He's like, dude, I put this in front of Josh. He's going to tear him up. And then I'll let him do the work. Mm-hmm. He'll justify why I'm not going there no more. You know? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one of the places he works on me the most. And again, my wife, if she was in here, she'd tell you the same thing. I'll send my wife a message every once in a while, and I'll be like, hey, do you think there's a different class we could maybe go to Sunday? And her response, here, in fact, I guarantee you, dude, I bet if I pull up, of course, I text my wife a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see, let's go back to Sunday. Let me see if I can get to Sunday, or it's probably Saturday. I texted her because we had church services on Sunday, and that's another thing. See, you'll always, not always, sometimes I slip, but that's a function of my dad. I always say church services.
Yeah.
Because my dad, growing up, we can have another discussion about that sometime. Growing up, my dad, we debated. Like our conversations, Ashley would tell you, like when she first started dating me and she would come over to the house, like she thought my dad and I fought all the time. We didn't. We just get very passionate. And I argued. I was the person that had to argue with my dad. And not arguing in a negative way.
Disrespectful, yeah.
But it was like you debated stuff all the time, okay? But one of the things my dad was super hard on me about was words mean things. Mm. Use the right words. Mm-hmm. So if I'd say, hey, Dad, I'm going to go to church. You are the church. You're not going to church. Church is not a place you go. Church is the body. You're going to services. And so to this day, like it's like church services. I'm going to church services. But anyways, I sent her a message probably Saturday of last week. I was like, hey, do you think there's a different class we could go to? And her response is almost always the same. She was like, we will never find a class that you are happy with. Because my thing, man, and I struggle with this, is when I go to class, I don't want to just kill time for 30 minutes. Like I want to leave class and go, holy cow. Like I gotta look into this. I haven't thought about this.
Feel challenged.
Like I've got to feel challenged. If I just feel like I left class and it was like, okay, everybody, like that was great, and we're all in this together, and I just don't, I like to be challenged. But my wife says you're never gonna find that unless you teach it. But that's a place, like you're talking about, that's a place where Satan goes, hey, dude, why go?
Yeah, just don't go.
I mean,
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I've been there.
But that's what he does, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah, and I mean, one of my things I struggle with, and Eric and I were going for a walk this morning, and I shared this. I struggle with jealousy. I do. I get envious of people. That's just a struggle of mine. When I realize and take a step back, she always brings me down. That's what I love about her. I'm so stressed, and I worry about things, and I overanalyze things. She's just simple expression. Yeah, but you're blessed, and you have a home that you have. And she makes it sound like, but then you're like, yeah, huh,
yeah.
Why is it so hard for me to understand that? Why is it so hard? And when I say us, I'm not talking about you, but just as a body, when we go through our obstacles and our struggles, I always get interested in when I talk to people who I don't want to say don't believe, but don't go to church or whatever. Well, I mean, why do bad things happen to good people?
Yeah.
Well, because we're sinners, one. Number two, you do know that Jesus was flogged, beaten, did nothing. And
Right.
and you say that, and you know, if you're thinking, well, they don't believe anyway. But it's just, I don't even know how to explain it other than to say, everybody goes through bad seasons in your life, right?
Yeah.
And you know, open up that can, maybe you can fill it in.
Dude, what's interesting about it is your wife is so similar to mine.
Yes, they are very similar.
Because that's how Ashley is. Ashley's like, why don't you just relax? It's like I was telling you before we started recording. So I went, you know, you came in, you said something about my workouts, and because I do my workouts, I like to do them, and I unbuttoned my shirt and I showed you my heart monitor that I got.
Yeah, I was like, what?
What the heck is that?
Yeah, I was like, what happened?
Yeah. So I went to the cardiologist yesterday. I've got a heart monitor on now for the next 2 weeks. And in the long run, probably everything's fine. But yeah, you know, for the last week that I've been dealing with this issue, and I've been obsessed over it, and I've been like completely tore up about it. My wife has been like, nothing's wrong with you. It's all in your head. That's it. that's the whole thing.
It's probably going to be true, right?
It's probably going to be true. Yeah.
You're going to all these appointments, and the doctor's going to be like, "Yep, you're good."
Yeah, you just got anxiety, Josh.
Yeah,
might want to work on that. You know, I legit like after the appointment yesterday, Ashley was here meeting with one of her clients, and she got done and she came back to my office, and I was sitting there, and she's like, "All right. So how'd your appointment go?" And I says, "It was good." And I started telling her everything that the doctor said or whatever. And she goes, "All right, well, when do I get my certificate?" So, because clearly I've got a PhD in this, you know?
Well, I would just been, "I told you so," and walked away.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I get. Yeah.
But you know what, look, man, we're on so many tangents. This one's fun. So think about this, dude. You know, you talk about jealousy, and I talk about like things that I struggle with, you know, judgmental, being angry. I just started a book again that I've kind of worked through before, but I picked it up last night because as a side note, which we can talk about too, I came home and I cut my phone on gray mode. I don't know if you know about that. Do you use an iPhone or you use something?
I use that phone.
Okay, so on iPhone, you can change your screen to what's called gray mode, which is where all of your icons, everything, photographs is like black and white. It's grayscale.
Oh.
It's designed to make it less appetizing. Like I don't want to look at it as much. I deleted all social media off of my phone because we decided yesterday at lunch after my appointment, I said, I've got to start eliminating things that create anxiety and stress for me.
Yeah.
And one of those is being accessible 24/7 and then doom scrolling. You know, when I don't have anything else that I've got to do, I'll scroll.
Yes.
But the algorithm knows Josh. And so the algorithm shows Josh that the world is burning down, that people are going crazy, that Europe is being overrun, that America is about to fall. And all of that does is just heighten Josh's fight or flight, you know, response, which tends to fall on the fight side.
Yeah.
All right. So I start cleaning guns and getting ready to go. Okay. So my anxiety stays high. But anyway, last night, because I'd cut all that garbage off, I picked up a book, which I used to read all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the book is called Wild at Heart. I don't know if you've ever read it before. I've actually got it over there in my bag. Anyways, it's super cool. This guy talks about men and masculine. And he says, if I can get this right, he says men basically need three things. We need an adventure. We need, I don't know exactly how to phrase. We need an adventure to go on, a battle to fight, and like a woman to save. Like we need those three things. And then he gives these examples. He's like, you know, when you're a little boy, he said, even if you don't give your son like a toy gun, he'll make a toy gun out of sticks, out of whatever. Like it's in his DNA.
Yeah.
You know, he wants an adventure. And he made a reference. You remember the movie Legends of the Fall?
I do, but very, very
Okay,
very.
so Legends of the Fall had Brad Pitt
Yep.
And Brad Pitt played a guy named Tristan. It was three brothers. Their father was Anthony Hopkins, turn of the century, 1900s. And they all kind of three went different directions. One brother, who I think was the oldest, he ends up moving to the city. It all takes place like in the Montana, Wyoming area. He ends up moving to the city, businessman, ends up going into politics. The youngest ends up going to like World War I. He ends up getting killed. He's very young. Tristan is the one in the middle, but Tristan's the one that was always like the adventurous one, the one that wasn't tamed, right? And the guy talks about in the book, he's like, I've never met a man that has watched Legends of the Fall and wanted to be one of the other two brothers. They all want to be Tristan. And he goes, and I've never met a woman that wanted to marry one of the two others. They all wanted to marry Tristan. He goes, there's something about men, the way God made us, like we've got to have a battle to fight. We've got to have a woman to save. We've got to have an adventure. Now think about this. I know we're on so many tangents now. It's unbelievable. But think about this. What if your jealousy and envy is rooted in part in the absence of a battle that you're fighting or an adventure that you're on? Because if you were on your own adventure, or if you were fighting your own battle, I don't mean fighting battle like we've talked about fighting sin. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like battles you want to be engaged in, right? If you were doing that, you wouldn't have time for those other things. Same thing with me, right?
It's true.
Anger, disappointment, bitterness, whatever. If I was fighting a battle that I wanted to be involved in, I wouldn't have time for that. He tells a story of a guy. He said he was at a church retreat, and this is written from like a church perspective, but he said he was at a church retreat. There was an older gentleman there, and he said, I got to talking to him, and the guy starts talking about how he loved to sail. And he said him and his best friend, they built a boat. And he said he started talking about how their plan was to sail it. And I think they were out maybe South America, and they're in this boat that they built, and this big nor'easter comes up. Like huge. He's 30-foot swells, 20-foot boat. He said, I thought we were going to die for sure. And he goes, it was the best time of my life.
Wow.
Now think about that. And I'll bet you if you think back in your life to a time where, even if it was something unintentional, if you think back to a time in your life where you were like, I was scared to death, I thought like this was legit going to be it, you would also sometimes feel like that was the best time. Because it's a battle.
Yeah.
But we've become so, I guess what I'm saying is we've become so domesticated that we actually have time to sit around and compare ourselves to other people or be angry about minuscule things because we're not fighting the fights we need to fight.
Well, and that's also social media.
Amen.
You brought that up.
Yeah.
And I remember I'm on Facebook. I use it for God's glory and God's glory. I don't get into all the drama on there, but I will admit that I do have TikTok. I need to delete that. I just admitted that. Probably need to hand my man card in before I leave.
So that's the end of this episode with Glenn Shaw.
He'll never be invited again, and I'm going to delete his number. And hey, Josh, no habla inglés. But you get wrapped up in all that, and I've told Ryan this this summer when we had our conversations and Bible studies together, and I'd always tell him, I'm like, look, man, if you have no idea what a true childhood looks like, because one, I've allowed you to somewhat delve into the phone thing, not as much as maybe others, but still, I still take responsibility for that. Dude, when we were growing up, bro, we didn't know what that. You went outside. You went outside when you got home. You had to go outside.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know where I got on that, but social media it's a destroyer.
It distorts your worldview.
100%. I mean, and half the stuff that I scroll on TikTok is what you just said. It's Europe's going down.
Yeah.
USA's going down. The USA is going to hell in a handbasket. You just fill in the blank, and then I get off, and as I'm getting ready to go to bed, because 99% of the time I'm on it, it's before bed, which is when I don't need to be on it.
Right.
And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. Now you sleep really good.
now,
don't you?
now I have great dreams at night.
So check it out. So that phone right there, turn my iPad around. See that flip phone?
I love it.
So check it out. I kid you not. Yesterday, when I got done with the cardiologist, I made notes at my house, like things that I wanted to change in order to regain control of my life. Mm-hmm. So I wrote down on my notepad at my desk at the house, I wrote down, what was the first one? It was like time for others. I drew a downward angle or a downward arrow. Time with God, upward arrow. It was like phone changes. I literally started looking yesterday, man. And if there's anybody that actually listens to this that knows, please tell me. The best phone I ever had in my life, honestly, was the original BlackBerry.
Yeah.
That was a good phone. Okay. But if I could find an original BlackBerry that you could somehow break and get on a network where you can at least text and call.
Yeah.
Like I would do that. But that flip phone right there, you can't text. Well, you could, but it'd be like old school.
Man, I'd love it.
You know?
The only reason, and I say this, I honestly do believe I could go to a flip phone.
I think I could too.
I think Erica would tell you, yeah, you could do that. The problem is my work. I've got to be dialed in. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that keeps me on an iPhone. I really do honestly believe I could break it.
Isn't that something though?
Yeah.
See, listen to this conversation.
Yeah.
Listen to what's happening. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, because I'm in the same boat. Dude, I got text messages from a client last night at like 10:30. I mean, we have put ourselves in a position where the expected is that I've got you all the time.
That's it.
That's the expected now.
That's right.
Dude, I told people in the past, I've thought about this so many times, even before I was kind of forced to think about it. I thought to myself, if you think about a law office 50 years ago, there were no cell phones. There was no internet. Mm-hmm. It's like if Glenn wanted to talk to me about a case, like you either drove to the office.
That's right. Or sent you a letter.
And little Betty sitting up front was like, well, Josh is in court today. I don't know what time he'll be out. He normally goes to lunch over at the city cafe. You might be able to call and see if he's there. But if not, I'll let him know you come by. And you were okay with that.
Yeah.
Because there was no alternative.
That's right.
Or you called the office and Betty told you the same thing. And you're like, okay. And you didn't sit there and stare at your phone waiting to see if I was going to call you right that minute. But we've put ourselves in that position. And I think as a result of that, our anxiety has gone up. Our depression has gone up.
Oh, 100%.
Mental disorders have gone up. And it's because we now, it's almost like we're afraid to cut the tie between us and everybody else because we feel like if I cut that tie, it's going to have some cascading effect. And now my business will fail and people won't be able to communicate. And dude, I'm just at a point right now where I'm like, I got a daggum heart monitor on.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm like, give me a flip phone. And I mean, here's the way it's going to work, dude. Like don't text me. I don't.
Let me tell you something. And I'm going to tell you this and the other person who's probably listening because everybody else is like, they're crazy.
Yeah, they're gone.
If you have an iPhone and when you send a message and you have it where there's a readable receipt, turn off that readable receipt. And let me explain.
Go ahead.
Okay. When you start, because my wife does this, and here I am preaching to the choir. When I send her a text message and it's not read within 5 minutes, I'm like, she's not.
You get anxious, don't you?
I do. Turn that stuff off, because that other person on the end is going to expect you to. If you start reading stuff, that expectation, and then hey, why are you ignoring me? And then they're going to flood. Then they're going to flood it more.
Listen. I guarantee you, my phone's over there recording on us, but if I had another phone, I'll tell you, how many times do you send a message, especially if it's like to your wife or to your kid, right? You send a message and then you're like this.
That's me.
You're waiting. You're waiting for those stupid 3 little bubble things to pop up. You're like, okay, they're responding.
Yep.
And then you're just waiting and wait. And it literally occupies your mind. But part of that is because we've gotten into this situation of instant communication.
Yeah.
And it has to be, always instant. And dude, there's nothing that I text somebody that is critical. I get an answer right now.
That's right.
The closest I come to arguing that would be like with my work. If I'm in court, I'll message my staff and go, hey, I need this ASAP. Right. That kind of thing. But I'm the same way. I'm like, dude, yesterday, all right, just to be full transparency again, I leave the cardiologist. Now, this is a pet peeve of mine. All right. This is a pet peeve. And it would apply to you too, but it applies to my wife. If you send me a message and you say, hey, Josh, just thinking about you today, man, how'd your day go? And I respond to you immediately. And I go, man, my day was pretty good. I'm on my way home. I was wanting to talk to you about ABC. Are you available for a call later? And then you don't respond to me?
Yes.
Like, I legit am like, what's up? Because, dude, you just texted me. Don't act like, don't be telling me, well, I'm in the middle of something. You texted me.
That's right.
But it gets you all tore up. So yesterday I leave the doctor, right? And my wife, she sends me a message and she says, how did your appointment go? Well, I was on my way, like coming over to the office. So I said, it's good. I'm going to the office now. Are you there? No response. And like I could feel myself being like, you literally just sent me a text. Like, what's going on? But I didn't I intentionally calm myself. I'm like, whatever. Get to the office. And sure enough, she's in here. There's a lady in here talking to her about homeschooling and stuff like that. She just couldn't respond. Yeah. But what has happened is that instant communication has created that expectation and that anxiety in us. Mm-hmm. And dude, I'm telling you, I really believe, I'm so tempted. I'm so tempted to go onto Verizon, say, what do I need to pay y'all to shut down my system and give me that little Kyocera Dura XV flip cell phone. Give me that joker. And if Glenn wants to talk to me, you're going to have to call me, bro.
I have to call you.
You're going to have to call me. He's going to be old school.
Let me tell you. I can't tell you. My wife might get mad at me for telling you that she is not a talker. So she prefers to text because there'll be times where, well, why don't you just call and talk to her? Well, I could just text her. That bothers me. But man, listen, I would 100% do. So I'm assuming you do not have your work stuff on your phone.
No, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do.
Man, now you're challenging me. I feel like I was hoping you'd say no. I'm like,
well, see, here's the thing. But again, think about this, man. All right, let's try to digest this or dissect this. What is the fear?
Yeah.
What's the fear, right? And I'll start with me, okay? So what's the fear? If I had a flip phone right now as opposed to my iPhone, all right, I wouldn't get my emails, okay? No big deal other than through my website, people can contact me if they want a consultation, and I try to move on those pretty quick. So I don't have my email. I wouldn't have my calendar. I wouldn't have text capability. And I text my friends way more than I talk to them on the phone. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then just from work, other attorneys text me for information. I can pull up documents on my phone if I've got to look for something real quick. I text my staff. But here's the thing. Here's what I started thinking, Glenn. If I take that cell phone and I find me a BlackBerry, which, man, I'd love to have an old BlackBerry. But if I go to the flip phone, I'm still working Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. So I'm still here. I got a computer that sits on my desk. I got two sitting in front of me. I got an iPad I can carry to court. So it's not like, well, if I'm in court and I have to send my staff a message, I've got capability to do that from court. The issue is, why do I have to have that Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday?
Yeah. Why
does it have to be 24/7? Why can I not go back to a time where, hey, dude, my office is open from 8 to 5? Mm-hmm. After 5, that's my time.
Yeah, that's your time. That's right. No, you're spot on, man. You just dissected it right there. And yours is way more important than mine. And seriously.
So you want to order 2 of these phones?
So now, I mean, I have no excuse.
Here's what I think.
That's great.
Listen, here's what I really think we should do, man. I'm being serious about this. I think we should find 2 or 3 or 4 guys that are willing to get a flip phone. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to cut your phone off. That's your regular iPhone. You don't. I'm not saying go ahead and change the number over. I'm not saying any of that, right? But here's what my challenge would be. Let's find 3 or 4 guys. We all put the iPhones on grayscale and we leave it there because it's not as appealing. Mm-hmm. You delete all social media apps from your phone. You don't have to close your accounts, okay? Because like my wife was saying yesterday at lunch, I've got business accounts. Like this podcast today will go up on a Facebook page. Mm-hmm. If I delete my personal account, I lose all of those, right?
Well, see, you can do Spotify. See, I listen to your stuff
I do Spotify. That's right. But delete the apps from the phone.
Yeah.
We make ourselves a commitment that for 30 days, we are not going to have social media on our phones. It's not going to be there. For 30 days, our phones will be on grayscale. And for 30 days, our primary mode of communication is going to be that flip phone. And then we come back at 30 days and go, how's your mental health?
I love it. I love the challenge.
Dude, I'm telling you, look, Monday, when I come back into this office Monday morning, I fully intend to tell my staff, you are not messaging me anymore. There are no messages. If I'm in court, if I'm in this office or I am at the courthouse, you can message me and I'll have my iPad or my MacBook and I'll message with you like that. But if it is after hours, you do not message me. Mm-hmm. If my calendar says I'm off, you do not message me.
That's right.
And I remember this just because it's a weird thing. I worked for a veterinarian years ago when I was still in college. Dr. David Harris. I remember he took me to lunch one day. And as we were walking out of the clinic to go to lunch, he told his staff, he said, if you need me, call me. But if you call me, you better need me. And that's always stuck with me.
Love it.
And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell my staff Monday, if you need me, call me. But if you call me, you better need me. Yeah. And especially in my business and maybe in yours too, because of what we're talking about, everybody thinks that their issue is an emergency right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's not.
No. But we made it that way.
We made it that way. We've allowed ourselves to be pulled into that.
Yeah. That's a lot to drink.
And look at us now.
I know.
We got heart monitors and anxiety.
You do. I'm probably well on my way. No, I love that. I would definitely love to be in that group if you choose to do that for sure.
We need to do it, dude.
Yeah, there's no reason.
Because here's the thing. You mark my words. This is what's going to happen. All right, let's just be real about it. If you and I don't commit to do it, we won't do it.
No, you're right.
We'll leave. We'll leave today, and we'll be like, "Well, that was a cool concept, Josh. That was neat, man.
Yeah, great, Josh.
Yeah, cool." And then in 30 days, like you and I might meet up for lunch or something, and we're going to be right back where we were.
Talking about the same thing. Looking on our phone. Somebody's
going to ding us while we're trying to eat lunch. Oh, hey, let me respond to this real quick. It's just my office. It's the same thing, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of at that point. I mean, I'm 40. How old are you? I'm 47.
I'm 42.
Okay. I'm at that point in my life where I'm like, you know what? What if the worst thing happened? Like in my mind, because my mind always goes to the worst case scenario. Right. What if the worst thing happened and my business completely failed? Nobody wanted to hire Josh anymore. Okay. I mean,
got to take care of you.
I mean, here's the thing, dude. My wife is still going to be there.
Yeah.
My kids are still going to be there. I mean, other than that, in my relationship with God, what really should be occupying my time?
100%. Agree.
But we let it.
I know. We've allowed it. Years of it. Years of unwinding and trying to retrain your brain to think differently.
That's why it's so hard to break.
Well, you say 30 days. They say in habits breaks after 21 days. I think that's fair. I think it's good. Now, yeah. But here's the thing. Your brain is so wired. And by the way, I'm getting ready to plug your last guest because she made a comment.
Rhonda Rush
made a comment about how it takes a year for that frontal I think she said a year.
Yeah.
To heal. There's a lot of healing that needs to go on there for me. And I'm not trying to I'm not trying to joke about what she was talking about because what she was talking about was serious, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. But think about this, man. Look, let me give it to you this in kind of a different way. You know, you and I, before we started recording, we talked about the idea of addiction and how different addictions have similar characteristics and patterns, right? Think about this. July 10th. July 10th is the morning that I walked out of the ER with my last little issue. I have not had caffeine since then. Now, I say that. I did Friday before last on our way back from Alabama. I stopped they had this coffee place in Alabama called Badass Hawaiian Coffee Shop. Is a donkey. Okay. Not the other. And I was like, I want a coffee. And so I got one. I drank maybe a third of it. And then last Saturday, so a week ago today, Jackson and I went out to shoot guns. And I was like, I want a Black Rifle coffee. And so I drank maybe half of that. Other than that, that is the only caffeine that I've consumed since July 10th. Now, that's going from a dude who I used to also try to do a gallon of water a day, and I would get close a lot of times. But Pepsi. Dude, I love Pepsi. Like lunch, whatever I would order for lunch, Pepsi with it.
Yeah.
When I'd get home in the evenings, even after a workout, like Pepsi.
Yeah.
I love Pepsi.
Yeah.
No caffeine. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, when I tasted coffee 2 Fridays ago, like it didn't even taste good.
Like it.
I carry these. My kids make fun of me all the time because I have more water bottles probably than any outfitter store in Middle Tennessee. Whatever. I'm addicted to water bottles.
Yeah.
I fill these jokers up with water, and I'll drink 3 or 4 through the day. Just drink water. Here's my point. Was it hard for me to do that? No. I've tried to do it before. And when I've tried to do it before, was it hard? Yeah. Because I didn't really want to do it. I felt like I probably should do it, but I didn't really want to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But July 10th, I was like, I'm done. Like I'm completely focused on, I'm going to do what's healthy for me.
You made your mind up.
Hadn't been hard.
Yeah.
And now it's like, just wake up in the morning, fill my water bottle up, and I carry this joker everywhere I go. How will the cell phone be any different?
It won't.
Right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
We're going to start off, and you're going to we'll have a little bit of anxiety because it's like, what am I missing? What calls aren't coming through? What texts aren't, you'll have that. But I think as we move through and we communicate to people, like for example, we take our iPhones and we communicate. Hey, dude, I'm not texting anymore. Here's a phone number you can reach me on.
Mm-hmm.
Call me. Next guy that texts, hey man, how you doing today? Hey dude, I'm doing good, but FYI, I'm not texting anymore. Here's a phone number you can call me on. Dude, yesterday I sent a text message out to kind of a core group of guys that are really close to me. And at the end of that text message, I literally told them, I'll show it to you right here. At the end of that text message, I literally said, I gave them an update because they wanted to know what happened at the hospital or whatever. And I said, my home phone number, I have one, I gave them the phone number. I said, y'all can log this in for me. In case you don't reach me on my cell and I'm home, that number will get me. Like, I legit have a red, like an old school red.
Do you?
I do, dude.
I love
on
it.
my desk at home.
That's incredible.
I've got a phone number at home. And I was like, dude, call me on that. We can do it, Glenn.
Okay.
We can do it. And I think it's about, and maybe that's a mission that you and I need to have, dude, for other men, right?
Absolutely.
Is we need to start taking our life back.
Well, our mental life back.
Yes.
And here's the thing, and I know we're probably, we've been going for a good while. I will say this, and this you talk about a topic that you can probably go on, and our mental health in today, it's
horrible.
It's terrible, and no one has an answer for it.
Yeah.
No one. Everybody wants, well, here you go. Here, take 450 milligrams of this.
Yeah.
I mean, Erica's got a coworker. She's got where her child, it has a severe mental health issue, and all the doctors have done is put medicine, and it has absolutely. She's like, I don't even know who he is anymore. That's terrible, man. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah,
that's what we do. We just put a Band-Aid on a gash wound and just hope it heals itself.
Well, but think about this, man. I think we've got answers, but we are not willing to look at the total solution. You with me? It's like, if we kind of bring it back to the Bible, right? And this is, I thought about this because this is in one of the talks that I give, but the parable of the rich young ruler, right? The rich young ruler goes to Jesus and he's like, Master, what does it take for me to inherit eternal life or whatever? And Jesus is like, keep my commandments. And the ruler's like, oh yeah, good to go, man.
Yeah.
Done that since my youth. Like, yeah, I'm solid. And then Jesus says, okay, good. Yeah. Now go. Sell all that you have and give to the poor. Follow me.
Yep.
And the Bible says that the ruler went away sorrowful.
Yeah, with his head down. Yeah.
Because he had great wealth. See, and it's like, I tell that story when I give my talks because it's like he was willing to go part of the way. He wasn't willing to go all the way.
Yeah.
Right? So think about this. My mental health over the past couple of years has been better than it had been in a long time. What do I attribute that to? In large measure, I attribute that to my physical routine. I push myself. I work out. Okay. And we know that that's good for you physically and mentally. Right.
No doubt.
I try to consume quality things as opposed to junk all the time. Right. That's good for me physically and mentally. But watch this. I still have a heart monitor on. Right.
Yeah.
And the doctor and my wife both said, your labs are good. All your tests are good. Yeah, like physically, Josh, it looks like you're probably okay. But that anxiety, dude, you got to get that under control. So maybe it's, yeah, you do need to exercise. And yeah, you need to do need to be drinking water more than you're drinking Cokes and energy drinks for sure. But maybe this is, and I don't want to say this in a flippant way, but maybe this is kind of like God going, okay, yeah, I know you've got those commandments down, Josh, but now go get rid of that device that connects you to the entire world.
Right.
That preoccupies your mind, that you turn to instead of me, instead of books, instead of nature. Anytime you have downtime and you just scroll the evil and the bad that's going on, get rid of that. And I'm not going to tell you don't communicate with people. There you go, Josh. There's your little flip phone. It'll make a phone call as good as that iPhone will any day of the week. Now, the question is, you willing to go all the way?
I love it.
Ain't that something?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I just got chills.
Well, it got cold in here.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Man, I'm so glad you came to talk to me today, man.
Appreciate you reaching out to me.
This was awesome.
This was great.
I don't know what this one is going to sound like, dude, because we went flat out all over the place. But this was really fun. I want to do it again. And I guess, man, the challenge that I would give, not only to you and I, but to anybody that's listening to this is, I think one of the overarching things from today's episode is really rooted in that mental health and spiritual health. And they have to go hand in hand. And so my challenge, first to you, because you're sitting in front of me, and myself, and then to everyone else, is you got to find something that seems like it's too hard to do because we're too accustomed to it, and you got to give it up. You got to make that change. Because at the end of the day, if allowing the world to have 24/7 access to us and feed our minds with junk 24/7 ends up killing us early, then why would we do that? As opposed to taking our life back and actually living for ourselves, for our families, and in a way that God really would prefer us to live.
Amen. Yeah.
Glenn Shaw, thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks, Josh.